Anybody can boost an avoidance oxytocin, and all it requires is uncertainty. All right, so check this out. I stumbled across this paper written by 6 different researchers interested in how oxytocin affects romantic relationships. Now, the relevant part for our discussion is this tidbit right here. We propose a novel hypothesis, identify and invest, that frames oxytocin as an allocator of psychological investment toward valued, vulnerable relationships, and test this proposal in 2 studies. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, throughout the paper, the researchers keep talking about this identify and invest format for viewing oxytocin. Okay, so here's how it works. With the identify part of the equation, I'm going to use these colored cups to represent different relationships you can potentially get in. Now, all that matters for the identify part of this equation that the researchers are talking about in this paper is your brain has to literally say, this relationship matters to me. In other words, out of all the potential cups you could choose in the world, your brain chooses this one. Basically, identity is fulfilled. Next comes the invest part of the equation. All right, these balls are going to represent different forms of investment. So this one could be time, this one could be money, this one could be physical. The researchers are basically saying that the moment you take one of these balls and you basically invest it into your chosen cup, this is when oxytocin gets triggered. It is the body essentially allocating emotional resources to preserve that one cup and get rid of all the others. Okay, but what does this have to do with avoidance and triggering commitment? Well, I haven't gotten to the good part yet. There's also another line in the research paper that I found kind of intriguing. In both studies, participants' oxytocin change across the task corresponded positively with multiple dimensions of high relationship involvement. In other words, people who felt very invested in their relationship had bigger oxytocin increases. Nothing too shocking there, but this next line, at least when it comes to avoidance, makes so much clear about them. Increases in participants' oxytocin also corresponded to their partners reporting lower relationship involvement. Basically, when a person felt more invested than their partner did, their oxytocin went up even more. This is the biological flag of uncertainty. The person feels a mismatch. They're in, but their partner might not be. That's what activates oxytocin to this insane level. So basically, oxytocin went up most when there was a gap in how committed the 2 people felt. Now, this makes sense to me. One of the things that I've seen consistently across the board among individuals who ended up getting back into relationships with avoidance were things like this. Well, the program did work for me because me and my avoidant have been back together since November, and things have been going very well. But even if I can be considered a success story, I think success doesn't come from getting an avoidant X back, but from all the things it brought me personally. The program helped me rediscover myself. By the way, bit of a shameless plug here. That program she's referring to is the Seiter Super Offer, which gives you full access to our community, every single course I've ever created, weekly live streams with me, and so much more. Oh, and it's 50% off. All you have to do is click the link in the description below. Anyways, what Marianne is really saying here has to do with these 2 glasses. So as you can see, this one is full of clean, clear water. The other, well, it's murky. You can't quite see what's going on inside. Actually, it kind of looks like pee, but I promise you, it's just some orange extract. This glass, our clear one, is what most anxious people offer in relationships. Total availability, total transparency. Here I am, take everything. But for avoidance, that clarity doesn't create connection. It creates certainty, and certainty kills tension. And according to the paper, it's not ideal for boosting an avoidance oxytocin. Now this one, the murky, ugly pea water. This is what avoidants actually respond to, not because it's manipulative, but because it reflects how they experience love. It's messy, it's confusing, it's uncertainty. When Marianne stopped over-explaining herself, when she stopped handing over this clear glass and started her own personal growth instead, she became this. Really weird analogy, but bear with me here. She's still valuable, still meaningful, but no longer guaranteed. And that's what made her avoidant take notice. But you want to hear something even wilder? The psychological reason for why avoidants are attracted to this pee, water, whatever. The reason they're attracted to it is because it kind of reflects their childhood. A few videos ago, I talked about my rigged dice theory. And yeah, I hate to be derivative, but I'm bringing it back. Only this time, let's go to the extreme. Let's say you take someone with a fearful avoidant attachment style. Now, this dice is how their nervous system was trained to make sense of love. Now, imagine their primary caregiver growing up was wildly inconsistent. So sometimes when they cried, they got love, sometimes silence, sometimes warmth, other times punishment. Now, every time they reach for connection, it's like rolling this dice. One side lands on, hey, you're too much. Another, I love you. And then work it out yourself. Over time, what starts to happen is they stop trusting the outcome. But they keep playing because deep down, they want one good roll. The same chaos gets transferred into adult relationships. Okay, let's bring back our 2 water cups and play a game. Okay, here's the question. Which one of these water cups mimics a rigged dice? It's this one, right? The murky glass. Because for a fearful avoidant, love has never been clear. Sometimes it soothes, sometimes it stings. Every sip... No. Every sip is a gamble. That's why they pull away from clarity and lean in when things feel uncertainty. Now, let's go back to our research paper for a moment. There is no way for me to know what attachment style each of these testing subjects were in the experiment. But I have to believe that if this oxytocin boost is happening with regular, securely attached people, its effect would be even greater on avoidance. So that's it, right? All you have to do if you want to boost an avoidance oxytocin is act uncertain, and then surely commitment will come. Well, I went down the rabbit hole trying to prove that point and ended up with this very confusing research paper that basically states negative correlations were found between attachment avoidance and the volumes of the left middle temporal gyrus and the right parahippocampal gyrus. Here's what that means in simple terms. These brain regions mentioned are tied to emotional memory, contextualizing social experiences, and processing relational meaning over time. So what this little statement seems to suggest is people with high avoidant attachment have less developed regions of their brain responsible for processing emotional and relational context. Now, why is that relevant? Because it helps explain why avoidants don't act on their oxytocin spike the same way that maybe a securely attached person might. The feeling is there, the bond, the internal alarm that something valuable is slipping, but their brain literally struggles to make sense of what they're feeling in real time. That's why so many people say they didn't react when I walked away, but then months later they came back out of nowhere. Look, I know that was really confusing. So maybe another metaphor will help illustrate this. You're watching your favorite anime, Dragon Ball Z. Now, anime, as you know, comes from Japan, which means that the only way to follow the story is with subtitles. These little things right here. So imagine this. Goku is standing there, screaming his lungs out. The music is swelling. Frieza is flying towards him. The tension is insane, and you're locked in. But there's just one problem. The subtitles are late. Goku yells something. You have no idea what it is. Then Frieza says something. Maybe it's a threat? Maybe it's like a final goodbye. You don't know. You're watching raw emotion explode on screen, but your brain's going, well, what is happening? Am I supposed to feel sad here, hyped, betrayed? And then 2 minutes later, I will never forgive you. Oh, Cool. Thanks for that. That paper that I stumbled across is essentially arguing that this is what reality is like for avoidants when it comes to processing their emotions. The feelings hit in real time. The oxytocin spikes when they sense you slipping away, but their brain doesn't translate it until much later. And by then, the scene has already changed. Sometimes the show is completely over. You know what's really funny though? Every week, I'll poll my community to ask them what video they want to see. And a few weeks ago, this video won by a rather large margin, as you can see. But honestly, I find the fact that what's popular with the masses is a flawed idea. Boost your avoidance oxytocin, trigger commitment. This implies that all you have to do with an avoidant to get them to commit to you is boost their oxytocin. But so far, our research, or at least the research I've done for this video, seems to be saying that oxytocin alone is not enough to get a commitment. And if you buy into that, it's easy to make an even bigger mistake. This belief that oxytocin is a spark that can lead to an opportunity for you to make them feel safe. The problem is a lot of people believe safety is the secure attachment. Yet the longer I study avoidance, the more I realize how tangled their mentality is. So the logic usually looks something like this. Oxytocin is triggered by an emotional mismatch or familiar chaos. Avoidants are drawn to that chaos because it mirrors their childhood. But that chaos doesn't make them stay. It makes them feel and then run. So here's the real question I think this video should be answering. If chaos is what sparks the bond, but safety is what keeps it alive, how do you give an avoidant both without losing yourself in the process? You know who answers this question better than almost anyone? Chris McCandless, the guy from Into the Wild. He ditched everything, family, society, even his own name. He went deep into the Alaskan wilderness, chasing freedom, self-reliance, and a life untouched by any kind of obligation. Now this sounds like a fantasy for most avoidants, right? Escape everything, be alone, be free. But then comes the part that no one forgets. In the last pages of his journal, starving, dying, totally alone, he writes, "Happiness is only real when shared." That's the avoidant arc in one sentence. They chase chaos because it feels like freedom. They run from safety because it feels like a trap. But at the end of the road, when it's just them and their thoughts, they realize what they actually were searching for wasn't isolation. It was connection that didn't cost them their autonomy. I'm gonna make a statement now that may upset some people. So let's say you came up to me and you asked me, what's the best way to get a commitment from an avoidant? I'd probably give you like a laundry list of things. No contact, trinity work, working on your own attachment. But then you say, no. You can only choose one strategy, nothing else, no tricks, no tools. I would tell you this, forget about them entirely. Move on. Look, I've had a lot of success getting commitments out of avoidance, but most of the time, all you really need to do is just give them space. The problem comes when you're giving them space, but deep down you want nothing more than to get them back. But if you really think about it, we've been slowly crafting our own little equation in this video. We know that for avoidance, oxytocin is triggered by uncertainty, that they are drawn to that chaos because it mirrors childhood, and in a way, forgetting about them, letting go, it satisfies both of these conditions. When you forget about them, when you really let go, you create uncertainty because they don't know where they stand with you anymore. And you mirror chaos because they suddenly can't predict your behavior. Or perhaps a better way to think of it is like this. This is Dan Harmon's story circle. Essentially, you can take almost any story, movie, myth, novel, whatever, chart it on this circle and it'll make sense. It's made up of 8 stages. You have a character is in a zone of comfort, need, they want something, go, they enter into an unfamiliar situation, search, they adapt, struggle, face challenges, find, they get what they wanted, take, it comes at a cost, return, they go back to where they came from, and change. Now they're transformed. Now, I'll argue this until I die, but I believe every avoidant is on a Chris McCandless character arc, whether they realize it or not. And if you don't believe me, let's chart his real life journey on Dan Harmon's story circle. So we have the comfort zone. So Chris graduates college. He's surrounded by expectation, family dysfunction, societal pressure. It's familiar, but suffocating. Then we have stage 2, need, which is this desire for freedom. He craves escape, wants to strip away the noise, the control, the false sense of connection. He believes true happiness lies in radical independence. Then go, he enters the unknown. He leaves everything behind, burns his money, changes his name, heads west, then north into the wild. Stage 4 is search, struggles in isolation. He lives off the land, finds beauty, peace, almost a sense of purity. But he also faces loneliness, hunger, and the slow erosion of human contact. Eventually, he finds what he's looking for. At last, he reaches Alaska. Total freedom. No people, no obligations, just nature, solitude, and silence. But it comes at a cost. He eats the wrong plant. He gets sick. Suddenly he realizes he can't survive alone. He has no one, no help, no shared experience. So he attempts to go back. He tries to leave, but the river is too high. It's too late. There's no way back. And that leads us to stage 8, the change, the realization. In the final days of his life, he writes, happiness is only real when shared. The core truth, the arc is completed, but the cost, it's permanent. That's the avoidant arc in disguise. They leave, they detach, they seek freedom from intimacy, but eventually, whether it's weeks or years, they arrive at the same destination. It only matters if it's shared. The question is, will they realize it before it's too late? And the even harder question to ask, will you still be there when they do? Earlier, I mentioned the Seiter super offer, which gives you access to our amazing community. And a lot of times, if you're struggling with letting go, knowing that's the best way to get the commitment you want from an avoidant, you can't really do that alone. You need to surround yourself with people who aren't stuck in the same loop you're trying to escape. People who can remind you of your worth when your avoidant goes silent, who didn't just tell you to let go, but show you how they did it. And that's what the Seiter super offer gives you. It's a community, a blueprint, a place to land when your nervous system wants to run back to the past. So if you're interested in joining, click the link in the description. It's 50% off right now.